Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us as we meet Gordon and Vanessa from Badachro. We've just had a conversation about how to say that properly.
I think you just got it wrong.
Did I? Well, we'll get them to correct us and make sure we're definitely saying it right going forward. But this is second attempt. Allegedly there was an earthquake, and then apparently it turned out there was something happened at the local quarry, and that's why the Wi-Fi went down. Maybe they can correct me on that as well. But this is obviously rearranged, so thanks to everyone for joining us. And on that note, we'll bring in Gordon and Vanessa. Are you there, guys?
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Yes, we are.
Lovely to see you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Nice to see you again.
Absolutely.
And anybody or everybody who's listening.
Yes, absolutely. So did I say it right there?
You did. Badachro.
Badachro.
Very well done.
Okay,
it's
good.
an very easy word to mispronounce. So
yes.
You did very well.
Thank you. So what are you guys drinking there?
So sorry. No. We are. This is our orange gin.
Ooh.
It's still. Well, you.
Yeah, it's a slightly less sweet version, or a slightly drier version of Badachro gin, with a couple of different kinds of orange, some dried orange and some fresh orange, soaked in it for compounded, as the technical word is, soaked in it for a period of time. And we're experimenting with varying the amount of botanical of orange we put in it for a short time, or less for a longer time, or lots for a long time. So we're at the stage of, we decided our flavour, and we're varying the intensity of it by doing these tests just now, of time and quantity of orange. And we've got to keep testing it until it's right. So.
Oh, beautiful. Oh, that's lovely. And so can we assume that's not just for your own personal tinkering? Is that something we can all look forward to? Maybe.
Well, right now it's only for our own tinkering, but we will get it to the market within the next couple of weeks, I think.
Oh, fantastic!
On a limited quantity to start with, and then like the raspberry, it'll be a limited quantity, but our cores will stay. Key products will stay the same as before.
Yes, yeah.
And Vanessa and I are both drinking the orange gin with our local Love Tonic, which is made in Inverness, or the brand's company's from Inverness, and it's a really interesting tonic because it's quinine free, and in the soft drinks industry, if you mind the three main types of lemonade, soda water, and tonic water, it's right in the middle.
Wow.
So there's a bit of sweetness in it.
Yeah.
There's a bit of bitterness that comes from quinine, but it doesn't come from quinine in Love Tonic. And then, but it's not too strong in flavour, so it has that pull towards a soda. So it's in the middle of that soft drink triangle. And
it's very nice.
It's very nice, and it works with a few of our gins really well.
That's good. Yeah. Well, you're not the first that we've heard that from, and we're yet to try it. So
we've got a couple of bottles.
Yeah, we do have a couple of bottles sitting there. So you've inspired us to, maybe that'll be our weekend G&T. Thank you.
That's a good idea.
And we've been to see you guys, and that's a fantastic place in the world, in Scotland, that you guys live. And we've done a couple of features, so we kind of know your backgrounds. But for those that don't know, you had ties to where you live long before you established the distillery. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you guys met and came to call Badachro your home?
Well, I came up here on a school trip originally. I grew up in Germany, and just really loved it. Kept on coming back, then studied in Edinburgh. And while I was coming back up here, I would always hear about Gordon. We had the same circle of friends, but we didn't ever meet. So eventually, it took about 5 years, I think.
Wow.
So we then met and got married 12 weeks later. So it all happened very quickly. My dad at the time just said, "What? You can't marry the first Scotsman you bump into." So it wasn't. So yeah, he wasn't too pleased. But it was Gordon had just taken on a job in Saudi Arabia. So we had this we either just get married now, or who knows what's going to happen. So yes, but Badachro we always kept on coming back to Badachro, and actually I think a year after we got married, we were in Badachro, went for a walk, and sat where the house is now.
Pretty much where we're sitting now.
Yes, and just said, oh my God, just imagine you could have a house here. And went back down to the pub, and the Badachro Inn, and spoke to Martin, who's the owner, and he said, oh well, that plot's for sale. And that's how it all started. So, and then we moved up 13 years ago now.
Yeah.
13 years ago, and
Well, we moved out 13 years ago and lived in a caravan with a baby, a toddler, a puppy, a really grumpy pussycat, and a lot of midges. While the house was being built, and the house took 6 months and 1 day to build from scratch, so that was reasonably good.
That's not bad.
And moved in, and we'd planned to do bed and breakfast, and so after the winter, because we moved in October, so we were here for the winter, and then in May opened our doors as a bed and breakfast, and right from the very beginning, our B&B guests would ask us, what is there to take away from this area? What's the souvenir? What's the place well known for? And it's shellfish, but shellfish, and the shellfish is awesome, but it's not very transportable, funnily enough. So we talked a lot about what we could do in the winter and what possibly we could make something that would satisfy this need or desire or demand from tourists. And Vanessa had retrained as a horticulturalist, and was growing soft fruit and salad leaves for the local restaurants and things. And you suggested that we make something out of the plants around here. Is there something we could make that was, and I think you meant a smelly thing.
Yeah, I was thinking of, I don't know, room diffusers or candles or something, and Gordon went, oh, maybe alcohol.
Maybe. Because the trigger to that was because there's a lot of bog myrtle around here.
Yeah.
And in Italy, where I'd lived for a wee while before we met, there was a liqueur, well-known liqueur called Myrto, which is a myrtle-based liqueur. So I thought maybe we can make our own Highland version of Myrto, and we'll have muck Myrto. I didn't really want to call it that. So we bought a bottle of Myrto, had it sent over, opened it, tasted it, and realised it really wasn't very nice at all. We didn't want to make that.
Extremely sweet.
It just wasn't to our taste. But we did decide to maybe make our own liqueur, because as we'd been living in Saudi, there were some naughty expats, not me, but some naughty expats making their own alcohol. And I observed and thought, okay, they could make a still, I could probably make a little one. And so we started distilling individual plants, and Vanessa would choose, with her horticultural knowledge, appropriate plants.
There's quite a lot of sort of folklore, and like you have the gorse wine and the myrtle that's been used for keeping the midges at bay,
and as a love potion. Witches use it as a love potion.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
not so much love as. Well, let's just call it a lust potion.
Okay. Okay.
But, So Vanessa would choose botanicals, and I would distill them, and we ended up with about 40 bottles of individual distillations of birch bark and elderflower and myrtle and juniper and dandelion roots and birch bark and just all sorts of things. And once we got the kids to bed of an evening, we would sit and sip them, and what tasted nice, what was sour, what was sweet, what was disgusting, what was pleasant. And then we would get a little shot of, at the time, pretty cheap vodka, and put droplets with a pipette of these distillates into a little bit of vodka and start combining flavours to try and build up a cocktail of these flavours to create our own liquor.
Wow, yeah.
And we were kind of heading in the direction of a liqueur.
Yeah.
But our constant complaint to each other was that it's a bit sweet. The sugar really takes away from see, traditionally there are two ways of getting flavour out of plants. There's the use of sugar or alcohol. and that's why we were distilling, because we'd gone for the alcohol benefit means of doing it. And so the sweetness thing really didn't excite us an awful lot. And one day we put some of the juniper distillate into one of our mixes and thought, that's a wee bit familiar. That gin, that smells like gin. And thought, of course. We weren't huge gin drinkers, more wine drinkers in the past. And thought, gin, okay, juniper, of course. Let's make some gin. And remember, we were only making it for ourselves and for our guests, B&B guests, and for the local pub, perhaps, if we were lucky. So we developed 5 different gins, took them down to, we couldn't agree which was the one to go with, because we've been married for ages, so of course we couldn't agree. So we took them down to the local pub, the Badachro Inn, which is our official test facility now, and shared them out amongst folk, looking for to get some consensus on which recipe to go with. Complete waste of time. No consensus whatsoever, and everybody had a different opinion. So we came away from that a bit lighter on the foot and happier than we had gone into the pub to start with, but disappointed that we didn't have a conclusion. So we went with Vanessa's preference because. But
also, I think that in general, they liked what we had presented them, so that's kind of nice. That at least nobody said, "Oh my God, that's disgusting." So that's a good first step.
Yeah. Yes. So we made 10 bottles of this, and Vanessa said to me one day, "Gordon, I think actually you should probably go and get some official training before you poison somebody."
Good point.
And I wasn't resistant to this, but I'm a very impatient person. Yes. And I basically signed up in the first course I could get on that sounded good. And that turned out to be a diploma in distilling through the Institute of Brewers and Distillers. So I did the first segment of the diploma course and got thoroughly sucked in, became utterly obsessed, and actually met loads of interesting people on the course, some of them who were practicing distillers and some of them very experienced. They were just updating their qualifications. So went to work in one of the distilleries in Perthshire for a while and got some on the tools experience. Ended up buying a still from them because they had upgraded and had a little one left. And Delilah, who was our first still. Whom you've met.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And and the rest is kind of history. We started making enough for our guests in the local pub, and then it travelled up the west coast and along the top and down to Inverness, and then in Majestic stores across Scotland, and then Edinburgh and Glasgow, and then a London distributor came to us because they'd come across and heard of our there's Delilah. Mm-hmm. Came across our gin on a holiday and asked if they could distribute it in London, and then we started exporting to Germany and now Denmark and soon Malta and Faroe Isles and possibly Spain, and it's just really taken off.
Brilliant,
fantastic.
So that's the trust me, that's the short version of the story.
Well, that's a lot of, because I guess when did you start with those small distillates before you even thought about making gin? When would that have kicked off?
Well, that was about a year before we got started properly. So 5 years ago, 4 years? 4 years?
4 years ago.
Yeah.
4 years ago.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, about 4 years ago.
Yeah.
There were a good few months, couldn't put an exact number to it, of testing and playing around.
Mm-hmm.
It's a kind of hobby that merged into something more. And then going through the licensing process, of course, was a bit more time consuming and arduous.
Yeah.
Getting all our different approvals and licenses from HMRC.
Which is always a bit harder.
Yeah. We were advised we should probably go to a lawyer specialising in that who could take us through the whole process. But we couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
So I kind of navigated my way through the tangled web of it all myself. Made a few mistakes, but actually, although the system is antiquated, unfit for purpose, and ridiculously bureaucratic, the people running it, the individuals in HMRC, have been extremely helpful and positive and encouraging.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, I love your story. I think there's so many brands, you know, if you think about, they set out to, we want to make a gin, and then they work from there, you know, whereas what you've described is not at all like that. You know, it's you know, for your...
No, we did fall into it.
What was that, sorry?
Yeah.
We did fall into it.
Yeah.
It wasn't a business or an idea that was designed to let's achieve this. It just...
It was something that almost... Sorry.
Yeah. No, sorry. No, I think it's like a lot of you know, businesses up here. You're in the tourist industry. You have your seasonal work, so to speak, but then you're always looking for something else to do, because so it was always we were always looking for that other leg to stand on.
Yeah.
And actually that other leg has turned out to be your absolute passion.
Yeah.
So
I don't think we explained to everybody that our core business was, until recently, our bed and breakfast and our self-catering house, and the distillery was a little add-on. But
so we started off with the gin, you know, because our well, I think you said our guests having dinner here, and you kind of think, oh well, you know, but we'll just make it for our guests, and then we went to the inn, and that's the beginning.
Took over my life completely.
Yeah.
You know, all of mine and half of yours.
Yeah.
I think it's fantastic though that, you know, you guys, you make your gin where it says on the label, you know, and you'll know it yourself. And in the spirits industry, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors around where things are made, and I think it's fantastic that you've managed to capture your love and passion for the area that you've settled in, where you've raised your family, where you've established your businesses. You've managed to almost put that into a physical product, which I think is a really difficult thing to do, and to do it well. And I think you've done a fantastic job with it.
It's really nice for you to say that, and to have recognised that, because it's what it is. We wanted to try and put Badachro into something, some manifest it in some way that people could take it away with them or experience it when they weren't physically here, and also do something that we were passionate about. And that word's really overused, I know, but because our distillery and our everything that we do here is very much based on two cornerstones of it. One is artisan production. It's all Vanessa and I go out and handpick a lot of the botanicals. We make it. I light the still every morning it's running, and I taste the juices that's coming out of the still, and we bottle it ourselves and label it ourselves, etc. I've had a bit of time off doing that recently because our son is here for obvious reasons, and he's been doing that end of things, which is great.
Which has been brilliant, because he's kind of becoming our production manager.
He really is, yeah. But
even though he keeps on going, nah, I'm not, you know, don't even think about it, you know.
But that combination of artisan production and provenance, because it genuinely comes from, we have to buy in some of the botanicals because we can't grow our own oranges and lemons and licorice root, but everything that we could possibly get here we do. One of the exceptions to that, which is a really important exception, actually, is the juniper. We use a little bit of local juniper, but the local juniper, to be honest, isn't that good. So we use a bit from here, a bit from Speyside, and the bulk of it comes from either Italy or Croatia, because frankly, the heat and the sun produce a much more flavoursome juniper.
Yeah, but even that, we were down in Istria and actually tasted the juniper there, you know, and it is a massively, well, I wouldn't say it's better, because of course it's not better, but it's very flavoursome.
Yeah. We have heard that, and we do see that, you know, you do see the majority of juniper coming from Macedonia and Italy and so on. Yeah. So that makes sense. But fantastic. I didn't actually know that you did have some local that you were able to pick. So that's good. Yeah. And so if you were to think about, you know, obviously we've seen a number of gin distilleries opening up, you know, well, all over Scotland and all over the world, you could argue, in the last few years. But the Scottish Highlands in particular, I mean, why do you think that the Highlands have seen, you know, a number of new distilleries opening up?
Primarily because we have a very strong distilling heritage, and we have a very good global reputation for distilling, and our products can demand a premium.
And it's an exciting. Yeah. It's a really exciting industry and fun industry. I really think that has a lot to do with it. Mm-hmm. You know, it's quite a cool sort of. Wait,
sorry,
come back.
Disappeared.
We can hardly see you. You'll have to go back to where you were. There we go. That's better.
That's fine. Yeah.
Come back.
Come back. 25 years. You come back. You come back.
I guess as well that
other reasons I think are that it's this screen that's really important. Other reasons are, I think, us the Scots have an inherently strong entrepreneurial spirit, and so young people are enthusiastic and feel emotionally able to do something on their own rather than earlier on in life. I think that's a very it's not particular to Scotland, but it's a very strong aspect of Scottish nature and history. Mm-hmm. And I also think that there's although I talked earlier about the HMRC system being very difficult to work your way through, and it is, and it's very strict, it's very controlling, and rightly so, because it has to be, because there are significant issues that need to be addressed before people are allowed to do what we're doing. But I also think that in Britain, there's a remarkably liberal business culture, in that in many countries you wouldn't be allowed to start a distillery unless you were fully experienced and qualified formally in distilling or chemistry or something like that.
Or even I mean, in Germany, you basically have to inherit or buy. There is no new setting up of distilleries. That's just not a possibility.
That's interesting.
You know, so you are allowed to home distill more than you are in the UK, but you're not actually, you know, when it comes to the commercial side, it's a lot more, and that's a lot of European countries. That's the case.
And that's interesting because in Germany, it's very much they've been discovering gin, haven't they? You know,
there are thousands of brands, but there are far fewer distilleries than you would imagine.
Right, interesting. Okay.
Thousands of brands.
Yeah. Interesting. And so what?
Yeah, so that's why I think the Scots have been particularly active in terms of, but it's part of our culture. That's a big thing.
Yeah. I guess we are a creative people. We're kind of known for inventing things or taking things that other people have invented and making them better. And you know, there's no reason why Scottish gin can't be something that, fair enough, we never invented it, but why can't we make some of the best gin in the world, you know?
Yeah. Well, we sure make the most of it, so...
So you've talked about, you know, what it means to make your own local gin, but what do you think makes a Scottish gin Scottish?
Well, that's a very controversial subject, as you know, and it's
that's why we asked.
Well, I'll tell you my opinion. I think we share the same opinion on it. Probably. Which is that I think it should be distilled in Scotland, rectified at least.
Yeah.
I think the botanicals, a good chunk of the botanicals, not very precise or technical, should come from Scotland because that's what gives it the flavour. So, and those are the two main things for me. You know, the distiller doesn't have to be Scottish, but the production. The actual distilling has to be in Scotland, and the controversial practice of buying in gin from south of the border or overseas and sticking it in a bottle with a Scottish name on it, when nobody involved at any point or any aspect of the ingredients has come from Scotland, really should not be able to be called a Scottish gin. Mm-hmm. And just now, as you know, there's an extreme lack of transparency in many brands who purport to be Scottish but are not.
Yeah, and it's a shame because I feel like every time we've asked this question, and we've asked it a lot, we get the same answer, which is exactly what you've said. So it's very interesting, isn't it? But then the ones that don't want to be asked aren't around to ask. That's what happens, isn't it?
Yeah. So there's a bit of ducking and diving from the
I think
but as I said, it doesn't mean that the non-Scottish gins are bad gins.
No.
but they're dishonest gins.
Yeah.
And the consumer is buying not only the liquid, but also to a great extent the story and the whole brand and the experience, which is not just the performance benefits, it's also the emotional benefit.
Yeah.
And the emotional benefit when something's called Scottish but isn't is a cheat.
Yeah.
And well, our next question was, what do you think makes a good gin? But I mean, you've probably it's just what you've said, isn't it? It's an honest gin made with, by people who care about what they're doing and they're honest and transparent. But I don't know, would you describe it any differently? It's got to taste good, I guess.
Well, yeah, I would add something critical to that, and I think it has to be juniper led in flavour. And that is the definition of gin, is a juniper flavour led spirit.
Yeah.
And anything that doesn't have a recognisable juniper aspect at the front end of its flavour, to me, is not gin.
Mm-hmm.
It's
I think it shouldn't be sugary. That sort of, I just don't. That's just not gin to me.
Yeah.
No.
The European definition, EC definition of gin, as I'm sure you know, is a juniper-led spirit over 37.5% ABV, and a gin, something called a gin liqueur, which is 25% ABV, shouldn't have the word gin on it because it's not over 37.5% ABV. So legally, it's not a gin. Many of the other gins, I'm getting nudged here because it's something that really gets in my wick.
That's okay. I know we could be here forever.
Is that some of the strongly flavoured gins? There's some rhubarb and ginger gins that you can still taste juniper in, but there are a good many which have no aspect of juniper in them whatsoever. I'd be surprised if they actually have any juniper in them at all. Yeah. So the gin word is purely used as a marketing tool. It is not gin because it doesn't have. It's a flavoured vodka. And that's
and I think as well, to a certain degree, Gordon, it's about protecting the consumer. It's about protecting the terminology of what gin should represent. I
think language is very important. People hear and interpret and understand and believe are not words. And for somebody to say, well, it doesn't really matter, does it? Well, sorry, but yes, it does.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I might as well say yes when I mean no.
Agreed. Well, it'll be interesting to see how things go, but although it does seem like, for all the talk about protecting the term and defining things and regulations, it does feel like there's not really going to be a resolution to that, because
I think there'll be a resolution when perhaps some established brands maybe start losing market share to brands that take advantage of the term gin or the term Scottish gin, that are making a gin outside of Scotland but marketing it as being a Scottish gin. I think if they start losing market share, their ears might perk up, especially some of the big boys,
Well, unfortunately, I think you're right, Martin. I think economics, the commercial thing, would be the one issue that affects it. And people would argue that those influencing the decision on the regulation have a vested interest. And I'm not pointing the finger at anybody, but there are powerful forces at play, or highly influential forces at play, who don't want that regulation to happen. For their own commercial reasons. So let's move on.
Let's.
Yeah, and obviously alongside the distillery, you guys obviously run a fantastic bed and breakfast experience that we've both, when we visited, we were given the opportunity to spend the night, and we went out for a tea and everything. But how do you guys manage to balance sort of running two businesses sort of side by side?
Well,
we both turned grey. So.
Yeah, we both turned grey. And in one way, it was getting easier and easier as our children grew older and needed less hands-on attention.
Yeah.
And when they become teenagers, they actively don't want your attention. But you have to fight harder to give it. So that made things a little bit easier. We've started outsourcing bits and bobs, the things I don't like doing, like the bookkeeping or changeovers with the B&B, although you're really...
I find it really difficult to let go, but yes.
Yeah.
So, and Ashley, our daughter, is now at an age where she's happy to have a little summer job, so that helps. But to be honest, last year was a bit crazy because we just trying to balance the whole thing with, on one hand, you have the distillery, the production, you have people walking up the drive wanting to buy a bottle of gin, wanting to hear the story, having a bit of a chat, which at the same time is really nice, and you want to have that chat, and then you have to. We did the tours. And
they were one a week to start with for 6 people, and ended up as 6 or 7 a week for 10 people. Demand was mad, but it was commercially really, really viable. But in terms of our human resources, straining.
And I guess it's gone to the complete opposite right now. Anyway, I mean, you probably prepared for summer.
Exactly.
And then it's not happened.
Yeah.
And I think, like many people up here, we were all expecting quite a full-on season this year.
Yeah.
So
we're on the NC 500, and the distillery was growing, and it was all looking.
We were getting
really
a bit
good.
more organized with our tours, and the whole setup last year was a real learning curve. How we dealing
juggle things
with the people, who's going to be in the distillery, who's going to be in the house. And in many ways, how it is. It's really weird. You kind of don't have that much to do, you think, and somehow the days just kind of evaporate.
Yeah.
I think it's what the current situation provides is a time to step back slightly from businesses and look at them and try and decide what direction we really want to go in, rather than just being on the tracks and going there. It's allowed us
which
to
bits we enjoy.
It allowed us to restructure a couple of things and look at what we can outsource or get employees into, because we employ a few local people for a bit of bottling and labelling and that sort of production stuff. It's allowed us to take a breath, which is really valuable. Economically, it's been shattering, of course. But in the long run, I think it'll have maybe I just hope it'll have a positive impact on the whole thing. One valuable thing we have definitely rediscovered, is that we moved to Badachro because we loved the place and we loved the things we could do here and the environment and the people, and that's great. Now, we haven't met with the people, of course, but we have time during lovely weather at the right time of year to get on with playing, with sitting outside with our kids. Once they'd resigned themselves to the fact that there was no choice, sitting outside with our kids in the sun, without midges, at the right time of year, go for long walks, over hills.
Yes.
And obviously you've Otis as well.
I was out fishing with my son, which is my hair looks very bouffon-like, up until 15 minutes before we met this evening. Vanessa and Ashley have a couple of proper time with them, and
then we got a puppy.
Oh, that's right.
We got Otis, the Weimaraner. He's asleep now, but he's a handful. I don't think we would have coped if it would have been a normal season. But then we probably wouldn't have gone for it. I don't know. But it's lovely. It's lovely to have him and to be able to spend the time. And I actually, as a mom, I feel this is going to be. We're going to look back at this time in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years time, and kind of go, oh, remember that summer?
Yeah.
That was so wonderful with the kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's very special. In its weird way,
And we haven't been personally affected by any family or friends being ill or passing away, and thank goodness for that. I mean, we're very fortunate.
And we're not over it by no means. So, you know, we still...
Yeah, I think we've still got a long way to go before we're through the other side. But
exactly.
I guess we've just got.
But we're keeping a positive spirit.
I guess whatever the new reality will be, we kind of hope ourselves that people will support local. People will visit local. If you're going to holiday, you're in Scotland. You know, stay local, visit local. You know, holiday local almost. So hopefully there'll be an influx of people from within Scotland, you know.
I think that's very likely, and we kind of have different feelings about the whole thing, and economically we really hope that that's the case. But you know, in terms of the local community, the last thing we want to do, we have a very elderly community around here. We have quite a lot of vulnerable people.
Yeah.
So the last thing we want to do is encourage people to come here against the will of the community.
Yeah, of course.
So what's best for our business is one thing. What's best for us is a separate thing.
Yeah.
And what's best for the community, which will be the core driving force, can be yet a different thing.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a real challenge to.
It's a real delicate situation. I think you have to be, and you know, we're all in this for the long run. So you have to. You know, you can't cut corners, can you?
No.
You just have to kind of...
Absolutely. And at least, I suppose, as well, the way that your business is set up, you know, it's not just about the gin, or it's not just about the, you know, the B&B, you know, you've got both, and the two very much go hand in hand. So, you know...
Well, they do. They really feed each other.
Yeah. And no, genuinely, when things do return to normal, I guess the best normal for you guys will be next summer when you start with new guests again. We had such a lovely time, and I believe even though it was the gin co-op that was there, you do sit your guests down and you do, you know, give them a wee tasting and of an evening like you did with us, and it was just fantastic.
Absolutely,
and the local pub, as you say, and everything, just beautiful views. So we would highly recommend it to anyone. That I hand on heart, some of the photos that Martin took from that visit, I look back on all the time, and I'm just like, wow, that was when you go over the hill and look out to Skye and all the islands there, and then you look the other way and there's all those mountains.
That's amazing,
like, it's just beautiful. So I can see why you've picked.
When Sean and I were out fishing just an hour ago in the loch, the sun was coming down. It wasn't going down properly yet, but looking out over Harris and Lewis and dropping our rods in the water, and mountains, the sun coming light, the orangey light that comes down on the hills to the east because of the setting sun. It's a really emotional place. It's just stunning. It's so lovely when young people really appreciate it, who've been brought up here, really appreciate it as well.
Let's just say it took him a few weeks to appreciate it again and not go, I want to go back to Glasgow.
You mean all those years ago when you moved?
No, I mean for our son.
Oh, your son, sorry. I thought you meant Gordon.
No, for Sean, our son, who's the beginning wasn't that easy being back. And I think it's something you maybe appreciate more when you get a little bit older.
Definitely. That's standard.
What a beautiful part of the world to sort of have to retreat to, you know. And I guess our final question for you guys would be, obviously, where would you like to see your gin and business in sort of 5 years' time?
We're quite clear about our business strategy, but not clear about the pace that it will progress at. Positioning wise, we've kind of stuck to our guns. I've raced away off strategy a little bit sometimes, and Vanessa's always been the one to haul me back in again, which is great. Doesn't feel great at the time, but it's good for the business. And that we want to be artisan, provenance based, quality producers of a product which really speaks for our area. We want to grow. We want to grow not at the expense of price or selling out in any sort of way. We had one very large potential customer who suggested that, well, if you can't pick enough of it, just buy it in. And no, you don't understand our whole thing, so we won't be doing that. And so we do want to grow. We're as I said earlier on, we're about to go into a couple of new export markets. We've taken on a new business development manager, which is fantastic. We've got some plans for the future growth-wise, which I'm not going to talk too much about. I'm not going to talk at all about just now. We have plans. But it would always be about selling through independent bars, restaurants, shops, on and off trade, not through supermarkets and big chains, because we have a great story and people buy our story as much as our product. As talked about the emotional benefit. And somebody just picking a bottle off a supermarket shelf only sees the product and the label. Nobody can tell them the story. So we want to sell through.
We always need someone to tell
the story. So we'll probably grow quite slowly, but I think surely and sustainably in that manner.
I think in general, I think we are still going to be here in 5 years' time and doing what we're doing. I think that's under the circumstances that we all find ourselves in. I think that's kind of the plan.
Some other gin distillers have grown to the point where they have moved production from their Highland base in order to deliver the volume that they've grown to. We will never do that, and I'm not qualifying that in any way, because a bit like Harris Distillery, actually, distillers. I would rather grow more slowly and build something here and create some employment here and create a community positivity here, and have something that's sustainable than stack it high, sell it cheap, and then have the rug pulled out from under us.
I think it's really important. Our community here has been so supportive from the very beginning, and it's just they've been really proud of having a distillery in the vicinity, and I think that's.
And at the beginning of the COVID issue, when we jumped into producing sanitizer and providing that to the local community, really out of kind of self-interest in terms of the community to help protect everybody here, so we were all safe, and that spread out to the point where providing the London ambulance service and various NHS arms across the UK,
charities in Glasgow,
and care homes, etc. So that's helped us get through this difficult period, because we've had stuff to do, and we've really been able to feel that we're helping, and feeling that we're helping has helped us in terms of our emotionally.
Absolutely.
It made us feel less helpless.
Absolutely. Well, hats off to you. That's great that you've been able to contribute not just locally, but as you say, to various other places, and that's great. Well, I guess that concludes our chat for this evening. That was fantastic.
I'd like me to go on a bit too much.
No, not at all. That was great. It's kind of like we've always said. It's like you end up just having a chat and you forget other people are there. But even though we've met you and we've chatted to you, I definitely learned a few new things tonight. So that was great. Thank you.
I've tasted Gordon's scrambled eggs and smoked salmon.
I know. So have I.
Indeed. I think we'll be serving that up for a good few years once tourists come back again.
Absolutely.
But thanks very much for joining us for a chat tonight, guys. It was great to see you again and learn what you've been up to over the last wee while. So, if you got anything else you want to say?
No, just keep up the good work and enjoy the rest of the summer. Although it's not as you planned, as you say, we're the same. Try to make the most of it, and we'll see you on the other side.
Exactly.
Great.
Well, thank you so much for having us.
And thanks to everybody for watching. I really appreciate it. Come to our website at www.badachrodistillery.com and buy some of our gin.
Absolutely.
Indeed.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
All the best.
Good night. Great. So those guys said it themselves. Head over to their website, check out what they're all about, and I guess that was exciting to hear that there's.
Obviously, they're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, so you go over and you'll be able to follow all their social media channels there and learn a bit more about what they're up to, and obviously, hopefully, learn a bit more about their new product.
I know, some product development going on there, so I'm very excited to see that come out in the next couple of weeks. But no, thanks everyone for joining us, and we are actually meeting Peter, one half of Raven Spirits, makers of Raffin Gin, on Friday evening. So please tune back in for that. We'll see you then.
Yeah, take care, stay safe, all the best.